What's up, everybody? It's Greg Birch with Delta Financial, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And we bring on guest speakers. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming Mr. Pedro Meneses. Did I say that right?
What's going on, Greg? Thanks for having me, brother. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, definitely, brother. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? I usually ask beforehand. I feel like a clown.
Yeah,
now.
Meneses, that's fine. Yeah, I know it's not an easy one.
Yeah, I know. So to introduce Pedro here and a little bit about him. So for the audience that doesn't know who he is, Pedro was born and raised in Guatemala City from a very young age, and he always shows signs of independence, leadership, and great ambition. He was thirsty for knowledge to his deepest desires and goals. And when Pedro turned 25, he decided to leave his country, his family, and everything that was known to him to pursue a greater dream, purpose, and career as an entrepreneur. Pedro is a natural-born leader, driven by passion and always committed to delivering excellence to everyone he helps and surrounds himself with. He is best known for being someone bold in his actions and always speaking and leading with the truth. As a respected entrepreneur in his field, Pedro has also been a guest and featured on several influential podcasts. Beyond his love for helping others, he also runs a successful real estate business and short-term rentals management company here in Dallas, Texas. I'm also in Dallas, my man. Alongside his beautiful wife, Kayla Meneses, where they dedicated themselves to helping others build wealth through real estate. He was also the owner and founder of The Way of the Modern Beast, a movement and online store to help men go from good to great through self-care and self-mastery. He's also the host of a top-rated podcast for entrepreneurs called Chronicles of a Modern Beast. That is awesome. Actually, I really like that name, Pedro.
Thanks a lot, man. Yeah,
really cool.
You made me sound like an awesome person, man.
I love reading bios, and every single time they're like, dude, that's me. It's the best.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, damn, whoever wrote that, man, thank you.
So Pedro, so you are from Guatemala City, and you came here, it says when you're 25. And so start there. Start when you got the bug, when you had that seed of a thought that you're like, man, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do something great with my life, and talk through that process of what you went through mentally, and then also how you manifested that through your actions.
Absolutely, man. No, thank you. You know, I think I always had that bug growing up.
Yeah.
Never liked school, hated my teachers throughout my entire years in school, man. I never liked people telling me what to do. And when I became an adult, man, I came to a point in my life where I was a nobody, man. I was a complete loser when I was in my 20s, because my dad, he built a very successful company, and he gave me everything I ever wanted, man. Private school, trips, cruises, everything growing up. And I was the little one, and I'm the only man. So as you can imagine, they really spoiled me because I was the eyes of my parents. So growing up, man, that didn't help me when I became an adult, because I grew up with this mindset of, like, whatever happens, I can just go to daddy and he will fix it, or he will give me the money, you know. And throughout my early 20s, when you start those years and start partying and girls and all that stuff, like, I was trying to find jobs, and I had different jobs and all that stuff. It never lasted more than 6 months because I hated the fact of having a boss. I got to a point where when I turned 20, man, I was like, man, I feel like I need to do something. I really want to be a man. I want to discover what it means to be a man and all this kind of stuff. I read a book called Wild at Heart from John Elridge, and that put a seed in me, man, that years later came to produce some fruit in my life, and we can talk about it later. But, man, I was 23, 24, met this girl. My life was a wreck, drinking, partying, doing stupid things, got engaged. Everything went to hell. Decided to go to Costa Rica to try to finish college at that point. Costa Rica for a year just to party for 365 days. And I did do good in college that year, you know, because that's when I discovered, damn, man, I don't have family around. There's nobody around me. There's nobody telling me what to do. There's nobody trying to control me, because my parents always try to control me when I was 23, 24 at that point. They always try to control me, and they got involved in everything I do. That's one of the reasons why my relationship with that woman went to hell, because they were getting so involved in our privacy, you know. And I discovered, they're like, man, not being around my family feels amazing. I'm studying, I'm focused on what I need to do. I'm getting good grades and all that stuff. But, man, you know, you know how it is when you're in your early 20s. The girl kept calling me. I went back to Guatemala pursuing her just to like, we never got married or anything. We just stayed together for another 4 6 months, and that's what I found myself in this depression state, man, where I was like looking at my life, and then I'm 24, and I'm like, man, I see my friends, they're graduating college, they're getting very good jobs. Some of them are getting married. They look happy, they look stable. I'm here drinking my life away like an idiot. I don't have a career. I barely have money. I was trying to do some gigs as a freelance for like graphic design and things like that. Like, what in the fuck I'm doing with my life, man? And that's when I realized, man, that I needed to do something, and I needed to stay away and I needed to walk away from my family and everything I knew. That's what the thought process that I had. And I prayed, man. That night, I remember I was sitting in my house, half drunk, smoking a cigarette, pray to God, like, man, just give me one more chance. I just need one opportunity. I really want to change things around. I don't want to be this person. I'm almost 25 and I'm a complete loser. How can I change this? Help me, Couple weeks later, man, the opportunity showed up. I was having some drinks with a friend, and he's like, man, I'm going back to the States. I'm not doing much here. I have my cousin up there that he offered me a job, and that's when the light bulb went off. I was like, man, can you talk with your cousin? Maybe there's another job too. I will go there at least for 6 months. I just need to get the fuck out of here for a little bit.
Mm.
Like, talk. Long story short, man, they call me. His boss calls me. They interview me through the phone. It was for a sales position, like retail. We were selling all these high-end skincare and stuff like that in the malls, and well paid. And like, man, I'm in. So they end up buying my flight ticket, and that's where everything started for me, man. Like, pack all my stuff. I'm never gonna forget the day my mom dropped me at the airport, man. That was December 2nd, 2013. And she knew that I was not coming back because I told them, hey, I'm going for 21 days. These friends I met in Costa Rica, they invited me to their house in Virginia Beach. I'll be back home before Christmas. It was not true, but I think she knew it, and she didn't stop me.
Yeah.
And I packed everything, man. And that's my burn the damn ship moment for me. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm getting this one-way ticket. I'm not looking back. The only way I'm going back to this place is filthy rich or in a freaking coffin. And that was the mindset that I had when I moved here, man. And that's
Mhm.
pretty much where everything started.
So I want to break down a couple things that you went over here and highlight them for the audience because I've been doing a lot of interviews, and I've done a lot of interviews with very successful 7, 8, 9 figure entrepreneurs that have found success in their own industry, and there's consistencies across the board. First is you
Mhm.
talked about reading a book that kind of gave you that seed of a thought, right? And
Yeah.
almost always I found that there's somebody that had gotten some nugget of knowledge that set them down a path when they read a specific book. Like someone gave them a book, or it just happened, like they just happened to come across it. Like, yeah, okay, I'll read it. And there's power in reading books. There's power in like growing your mind and growing yourself individually that can help give you the right ideas and
Yeah.
spur those ideas into action later on down the road. Sometimes it's instantaneous, like you start to apply the right away, and sometimes it takes time for your mind to kind of uh, have that go around and circulate for a while before you finally take action. But I like that you identified that, like, hey, this was a defining moment. And then the next defining moment, I think, is when you had that prayer to God, is when you
Yeah.
said, when that right there is a perfect example of self-awareness. That is when you like looked at yourself and you're like, dude, I'm a fucking loser. Right? How hard is it to like look at yourself in that moment in time and kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, the way I'm living, the things that I have, or the lack thereof, the actions that I'm doing on a daily basis, this isn't me. Like right now,
Yeah.
the person I am, I'm worth more. Give me an opportunity, but right now I'm a shit show. Right.
Yeah.
And having that self-awareness where you're willing to accept the place that you are in life and take accountability and responsibility and know that the only reason you're there is because of you. Right.
Yeah.
And it changes the way that you talk to yourself. It changes the questions you're asking yourself, and like basically what you're asking the universe to provide to you, which it did. It gave you that opportunity because you asked for it, right?
Yeah. And I
And
took
so,
action.
dude, I believe that 100% because you had that moment where you were like, give me an opportunity. that opportunity manifested itself a couple weeks later, was like, hey, let's go to the States, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
dude, this is it. I guarantee, man, if you'd never done that, you probably would have never had that conversation.
Oh yeah, man. If I wouldn't pack all my stuff and just took that flight, probably I was still there, man. We wouldn't be having this conversation, you know. And because and you know, man, one of the things I always share with people is because I decided to take action at that point. It's like, okay, I made this decision. I'm moving. I don't know what's ahead of me. I have no clue that I will be having this type of interviews, that I will be an entrepreneur, that I will own my own business, that I will be doing a bunch of other stuff that I can use now my experience to help other people, you know. It's crazy not where I am when I look 10 years back, and it's like, man, it's been a wild journey. But just because I made that decision, it doesn't mean that things got easier. And I think that's the point that a lot of people miss, you know,
Mhm.
because from there, man, I had to do adapt to a new culture. It was a different way of living. Like my English was not as, it was good, but it was not as good as how it is now because I've been reading, I've been educating myself, I've been practicing, I've been doing other stuff so I can get better at speaking because I want to speak on stages and things like that too, you know. So I need to practice, I need to build that skill. But at the beginning, it was a little bit harder, you know.
Mhm.
So it was not easy at the beginning, man. I went through a lot of stuff. I even became an illegal immigrant at some point, you know, like I got it. It was in 2015. I had to make that decision, man. I have my visa, and I was like, well, this shit expires tomorrow. I can either go back and fix things up, take a break from what I'm doing, and probably miss the opportunity of not coming back because I was past the time that allowed me to be here as
Mhm.
a tourist, or I should say, fuck this, I'm staying here, and I'm not gonna because, and I have that fear of if I go back, what if I don't get back from if I go back, what if I get stuck again in that bullshit? And I was like, I'm not risking this shit, man. I'd rather risk it as an illegal immigrant than going back to the same place that kept me average for so long. And at that point, I had no clue about self-development. I have no idea about all this stuff. Like my mindset was an average mindset, you know. I didn't think the way I think now. So it was not easy. So I started a different season at that point. And now I'm illegal. Now I have to look over my shoulder all the time when I'm driving. I cannot do stupid things, which I did a lot of stupid things, even even illegally, you know. Um, but here I am now, man. You know,
Mhm.
it was part of the journey. It was part of like, but if I wouldn't put myself, you know, when I look back and I realize during those years when I was illegal, I now realize that if I wouldn't put myself in that place, that's being illegal taught me to be disciplined, taught me to have order in my life, to keep things in order, to be responsible, to start operating with excellence. Because like I was telling you, man, if I would just be driving above the speed limit and I would get pulled over, guess what? That could be a ticket. If I go to jail, they will find out that I don't have papers. That's probably a couple months until ICE come and gets me and I get deported. You know, that was that was one mistake and we wouldn't be here. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and that's a good way to look at it. That you put yourself. That literally is, you put your back against the wall with that,
Yeah.
to where you had to operate a certain way, which probably changed your perspective. It almost like rewired your brain
Oh yeah.
when you saw, hey, when I do things with excellence, when I live a life of discipline, and I'm doing the right things, these all these things are multiplying in my life. It's having these other
Yep.
effects, right?
You know, and
So
you mentioned something very important about being against the wall. And I always say this to people, man, because that's another lesson that I learned during those years that I have no clue about self development and all this. You know, I got to this point because I did put myself against the wall all along the way in different situations, different moments, uh, decisions that I had to made through the past 10 years. I came to realize now that the reason why there's a lot of people out there, your podcast is about self development and all that stuff. And I'm sure that some people that are listening to this, they're in the middle of their job and starting that side hustle and all that stuff. Here's the thing, man, that shit will never stop being a side hustle unless you put your wall against your back against the wall.
yeah,
Period.
yeah,
There you cannot allow yourself to have a plan B because if you allow yourself to have a plan B in the back of your head, you're like, well, if this fails, I can still have this, you know. And that's
mhm,
why I never grew personally when I was back home with my family because my thought process was, well, man, I can try to take this start this business or take this job. If I don't like it, I know daddy, plan B, it was daddy, right? Like he can help me get along for a month or two until I find another job. And that's why I never progress in my life, you know?
Yeah. I love the concept of plan Bs, dude. I'll tell you from my experience. Um, when I started in insurance, I started with like I'll do it. Like, and if it doesn't work out, I'll do something else. Right. Cause I just gotten out of the military. I still had my top secret security clearance that was active, that I could have went and got a government job. And that's what everyone's telling me, like, go get a government job. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not feeling it. Yeah, because I spent 11 years working for the government. I kind of want to do something else, right? So that was always in the back of my mind. And then as I kind of progressed for my first like 13 months, 14 months, I had an Indeed account that I would have active notifications looking for specific jobs, looking for like sales jobs that had salary plus
Yeah.
commission that I could go apply to. Cause I was like, I wanted the safety net of like getting a salary, but then also the income earning potential of being able to get commissions on top of it. And I thought this has got to be the way. So I'm going to start in this sales job and I'm going to transition to another one and I'll be fine. Right. Like do like a medical
Yeah.
device sales or some bullshit. And it wasn't until it wasn't until about like 13, 14 months in when I had a conversation with somebody and I realized that I had been holding myself back by having this Indeed account that was like sending me notifications and emails all the time.
Wow.
Like I'm constantly
Mhm.
like looking at these and my focus is split at this point. And when I got rid of that and I was like, I literally committed. I was in my mind. I said, I'm making this work. Like
Yeah.
either I'm doing this or I'm dying. there's, there's
Yeah.
there's no other option. I got rid of my Indeed account. I cut everything off. And anyone in my life that was like, oh, you know what? You should really look at real estate instead. Like the real estate market's perfect and blah, blah, blah. Like you can make so much more. No, I'm making this work.
Yeah.
There's people that are making money. There's people that have figured it out. It's not that the systems or the strategies aren't working. It's that I'm not doing something right. And I'm going to
Yeah.
start cutting this shit out. And when I did that, bro, the actions that you take are completely different because it's survival.
Yeah.
It's just
Exactly.
it's completely different. So I was willing
Yeah.
to be like, dude, I got to make money because I even had a part time job for a while in order to make everything. And when I got rid of that and I walked in and quit, and I was like, dude, I'm going all in on this. I'm
Yeah.
tired of trying to do both at the same time and juggle. It's not working out, and I just quit, bro. It completely changed everything. And
Man,
I went from
that's
like,
such a
go ahead,
yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
such a great lesson. And I was actually having a conversation with someone about a week ago. Friend of mine from church. He's been looking. We got for lunch, and he's like, man, every single time I have a conversation, whatever circle I'm in, everything goes back to real estate. And I think I should start doing real estate. I'm tired of working for someone. I don't know what to do. But then he mentioned something really important. A lot of people is like, maybe you should try wholesaling to get your license, or maybe commercial, maybe multifamily, and all this. And I was like, listen, bro, stop it. Like, knock it off. Choose one. Like you just did. Like, choose one and stick to it until you get fucking good at it.
Yeah,
Once you get good at it, and then you can like build a team or whatever it is, then start thinking about other stuff. Like if you're gonna decide to go with wholesale, fucking stick to wholesale until you make that shit work. And once you mastered that side of real estate, maybe you can start thinking about multifamilies and things like that. But you have to focus on one thing. And I think that's such an important lesson, especially for people getting started, man. Because you see people like, oh, I'm doing real estate, but I'm doing e-commerce and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And there's these other opportunities. And I've been guilty of that. I'm a victim of that, man. Like I have the real estate stuff, we have the Airbnb, which is pretty much all together, right? But I also started an e-commerce business, which is there. I'm not, it's running on automatic, but at some
mhm,
point became a distraction. And last year I was like, man, I like this. That's part of my personal brand, or like the way of the modern beast and the podcast and all that stuff. I'm still doing the podcast. I'm about to hit 130 episodes and things like that. So it's there, but it's just running on automatic because my focus right now is our real estate business, because that's what's going to provide for everything else. And since I switched that focus to say, okay, we're going to focus on real estate, our goal is to work with investors, not much with retail buyers and sellers. And that was her focus. an opportunity to start a management company for short-term rentals open up, and now we have this system where both things are feeding from each other, and we're growing our business. And still, the
Mhm.
other thing is automatic. A lot of people, man, are you still selling stuff? Yeah, you can go to the website, buy shirts, buy beer products, whatever. I don't care. Like if you buy good, if you don't buy good, there's gonna be the time where I'm gonna be able to come back to that and just make it like grow it and make money out of it. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
that's focus, man. It's just so freaking important. And the other thing that I wanted to share, man, is like, yeah, you have to put your back against the wall, and also you have to decide what is the price that you're gonna pay. Because man, I didn't started like my career as an entrepreneur until 2008, 17, 18, when I met my wife. We got married and all that stuff, because at that point, all I could do was work like a 1099, but pretty much getting paid under the table, right? And we moved to Dallas in 2019, right before the pandemic hit. And we didn't realize that Dallas doesn't have reciprocity with real estate licenses. So my wife had to go through the entire thing again. I was not licensed at that point, got my license until the end of 2020. And we moved here because I had a job at that point, a sales job that I lost. I got fired like 20 days before we moved. And we were moving here primarily because of that fucking job. So imagine that. We landed here in Dallas, no money. My wife couldn't work for months until she got her license. I didn't have anything. I was just doing some marketing stuff here online, lead gen and all that stuff. And then we got to a point where my wife's like, listen, we don't have fucking money. What are we gonna do? And I'm like, well, we'll figure something out. I was like, well, I think we need to go find a job. I fuck that. Literally, that's exactly how I said. I fuck that. I'm not working for no motherfucker ever again in my life. We will figure this out and we will make it work. Dude, I had to deliver groceries for 4 or 6 months, you know, to pay
Mhm.
our bills. When I was still working on my business and all that stuff, I would work 4 or 5 hours because I was like, man, what can I do that I don't that is not that doesn't require me to go and have to clock into a freaking job, right? So I end up finding the Instacart stuff, and I realized that first of all, they pay really well. I was making $400 or $500 a day, driving 5 6 hours picking groceries for people, because I realized, as I guess as my marketed mind, I kind of like understood how their algorithm work, and I picked specific locations that I will go all the time instead of driving through the entire DFW, right? Like everybody else does.
Mhm.
So I would pick specific orders to make sure I could hit my goal of $400, $500 sometimes in the weekend. Like I said, like Fridays and Saturday was $500 days. So I figured out my own system, have my templates for messages to provide like extra customer service, and I never got less than a 5-star reviews. And I got tips, 50, $100 tips, man, just for delivering a great service and really going above and beyond of what I was doing. So that was kind of like the what I had to do. And a lot of people is like, man, I don't know what to do. Like, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to go to? What is the price that you're willing to pay to get to where you want to get? Like
Mhm.
that was in 2020, man. That was barely 3 years ago, right? What I was doing that. Like now we have several six-figure business, to double our income in 2022, and we are on our way to already almost hit what we did last year right now before the end of the first quarter, because I decided to pay my price. I chose my heart. I said, no way, I'm not going back to work with nobody. This is what I need to do, and I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna find a way to go back into it and make this shit work for me and my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that's a great story. I love that you actually had you had the side hustle that was actually feeding your entrepreneurial journey, right?
Yeah.
At the Instacart, which hey, if you got to do that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and doing anything necessary in order to chase after your dreams, and all that did is it probably gave you even more drive to make sure that this was going to be successful for you.
Absolutely,
So,
man. And you have to find the opportunities when you're in the middle of a situation like that. Because while I was driving, man, all I did, I invested time studying, listening to podcasts, learning. While I was sitting down in a parking lot waiting for the next order, I will be doing some work on my phone, building funnels, reading, investing in myself. It's not that I was just sitting there listening to music while some new order will show up in my app. No, I was still doing all that stuff. I will go back home and trying to get clients for the marketing gig that I was trying to build at that point before I got into real estate with my wife. But yeah, man, we had to pay our price, and that's now we're here. We're building our business, and we're committed to grow this. We have found the right alignments right now, so we can take our business this year to a complete different level. But I mean, look what happened in 3 years just because we decided not to give up and not decided to have, okay, I need a plan B, or no, fuck this. This is what we decided to do. We stick to
Mhm.
it until we make it work.
That's the power of commitment,
Yeah.
of just committing to one thing, right? And that's a good point that you're making about hey, I'm no, fuck that, we're doing this is what we're doing. And the same conversation you had with your buddy, who was just like, dude, pick one and just move forward. There isn't a wrong decision, and it's usually
Yeah.
it's going to be varying degrees of like better, slightly better, a little bit worse, but not really. But no matter what, you have to just pick one, decide, and drive forward and give your everything, you're 100% towards the decision that you've picked. That's going to mean more because it drives action. That's going to mean more than you sitting there trying to weigh out the options of trying to find out that 100% solution, which you're never going to find. And being like, well, what's the best one for me? Well, you don't know because you haven't done any of this yet. You've never done
Yeah.
real estate. So how about you just pick and then go forward? And if it like, I promise you, if you go forward like your life depends on it, you're going to find success, because if other people have found success doing that same thing, then you can find success doing that same thing. It's
Yeah.
just you have to do the work, you have to commit to the action. And I've had very similar conversations when I'm talking to agents, when they're like, well, what lead source do I go with, and what company do I go with, and I just got my license and this, that, the other. It's like, dude, there are agents that are finding success in every single company in insurance, period. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's a captive company, it doesn't matter if it's IMO. What you need to do is just find one that you feel comfortable with, that you align with, and stop looking. It's kind of like the dating game, right? I feel like society has gotten to this because of the way that, and this is very similar to like dating on apps, you're right. People have gotten so used to swiping and looking for the next best thing, right?
Yeah.
They're always like they find someone, they connect, and they start talking. They're like, oh well, this is great. But then you go back to the app and you start swiping. What if I find someone better?
Yeah.
Right. And both men and women do this, right? So this has almost created this like subculture within our culture to always be looking for the better thing, instead of like watering the grass where you're currently at. Stop looking for the grass
Yeah.
to be greener somewhere else. Take care of your own shit. Decide on something. Go 100%, and you'll have the best grass there, because not many people will do.
Absolutely.
So,
Man, for the past like what 6 months, I've been going down studying a lot of stoicism and all that stuff.
mhm.
And when you read those books, man, like all these ancient knowledge, wisdom, and all that stuff, I have this feeling that society was not very different back then than it is now. No, for
Probably
real.
wasn't. It probably was.
No,
I
for
know. I
real.
agree. I agree.
But my point is, you mentioned something really important about the dating apps and all that stuff, right? Like, and I think that not the dating apps is the issue; it is the mindset behind all this stuff, right? And that's why you see 50%, like one of every two marriages end up in divorce, right? So, and I think this is my perspective. First of all, people doesn't they don't have an understanding of what marriage means, right? And how important, like really what it means, and the commitment that you make into the other person. And second is because society, man, they don't have in society. There's no standards. That's like culture, society, the popular opinion, pop culture that we call now. I'm sure they didn't call it pop culture back in the Greece in the Greek times, right? But I'm telling you, it was very similar. But there was not a standard. Nobody had this standard in their lives, and that's what we see in society. People have forget that you need to have a standard for yourself, man. And I was actually recording a podcast about standards uh, for my podcast early this morning. And the word standard comes from uh, is a combination between French word and a Frankish word, which pretty much means stand firm. Imagine that. Imagine the context behind the word standard. So, what are you standing firm for, right? Like if you're gonna commit to something, if you cannot commit to a woman that you literally these words came out of your mouth, like you promise someone to be with them until death, right? and you cannot keep that commitment between you and that person that pretty much are becoming one, right? How
Yeah.
in the hell are you gonna keep the other promises to yourself? And because you don't have a standard, you know, and you have to create that standard. You have to decide what is the standard that you want to live for your life, the standard for your life, for your relationships, what it is that you want, right? And decide, like, for example, if you're gonna get into real estate, that's because that's what you feel called to do and that's what you want to do. Find out, because there's so many ways that you can start doing real estate, right? Find out what it is that you like, and like you said, stick to it, commit to it, and make it work. But it's not gonna happen in 2 months or 3 months. It's gonna take years, man. I've been in this process for 10 years of my life for me to change the bad habits that I had, for me to change the thought process, for me to change my negative mindset, for me to grow into a better man, for me to understand, like, man, I made a commitment with a woman almost 5 years ago. I need to honor this person,
Yeah.
in everything. And that's the standard that I need to set, because, man, I don't know about you, but I do believe that all this stuff it passes down to generations, right? So I do think about this every single day. I'm like, man, I'm the one. I'm the chosen one. I'm the one that is gonna cut all bad habits of alcoholism in my family, of abuse or divorce and all that stuff. I'm the one that needs to set the standard for the rest of my generations. I'm the one that needs to set, like, okay, how my family, my name is gonna look like down the road. I don't care if people remembers me, man. Like in society, if we get something big and influence a lot of people, that's amazing. But what really matters is, like what is that intangible thing, the core values that I can establish right now that can pass down to different generations. Do you know that wealthy people, wealthy families, they lose their wealth by the third generation? And that's because they haven't set up that standard. They don't have the
Yeah.
core values. They can build the wealth, but if you want to be completely successful in everything you do in your life, you have to build your wealth, because money is important. Money matters. But at the same time, you have to build your core values. But if you
Yep.
don't build these core values, man, your wealth will never last. So that is the intangible thing that you can pass down your generations. And all of us, we have that opportunity right now for our families, man, whether you have kids or not. We all have that opportunity. You know, it's like, I know when I see my dad, for example, he's a great man and he had the opportunity to do it, but he didn't. He didn't cut all those bad habits, all those bad things, all those curses in our family. But I have decided to be that person, and it's a huge challenge. It's not going to be easy, but I'm committed to this. I decided I'm going to commit to this because I want to make sure that I don't only pass an inheritance to my kids, but I can pass something that can last, something that cannot be destroyed. That's the core values, the mindset, and the standard that I can set for them. You know what I mean?
Oh no, absolutely not. The concept of core values is something that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, they disregard as something that's unimportant. Like, it's okay. I'll do that and I'll do it later. Or they misunderstand the importance of actually setting your own internal core values, because as an individual, you should have your core values like you're talking about. You should have it for what your it is for your family, as your family, because you are the leader, as the husband or wife. You're the leader of one of the leaders of the family, and then when you're building a business, you got to use those same core values. That's what your business is centered around. That's how you operate. That's how you hire and fire. That's how you teach, train, mentor, coach the individuals that are joining your organization, right?
Yeah.
And that's such an important key factor when it comes to being an entrepreneur. This is how you should be living your life on a daily basis, and that's what's going to drive your success in the daily discipline, to make sure that you're doing the work even when you don't feel like it. I'm sure there's days that you're like, you don't feel like
Oh yeah.
showing extra support and love to your wife just because, like, maybe she upset you, or she you're upset at her, or whatever. And you're just like, man, I really don't want to do this. But guess what? You still made a commitment. You still have standards. And so even when you don't want to do things, that's when it means the most, because you chose
Yeah.
against all odds. Right. And
Absolutely.
dude, that's what is the difference between the people that are fake or pretend entrepreneurs and the real ones that are finding success, is they have those to rely on because it drives their daily actions. It takes
Yeah.
emotion out of it. And it's not about what they feel, or like, oh, I want to do this because I think it's no, does it fit my core values? Period. If it doesn't, we're
Yeah.
not doing it.
Yeah. And
It's
one of the things that helped me understand core values, man, because I think a lot, and I hope this help a lot of people. Um, one of the things that made it click for me is to when someone asks, when will you put your core values, pretty much your core values, see what matters the most to you.
Yeah,
Like when
absolutely.
you answer that question, like what matters the most to you? Is honor, it is integrity, it is money, it is health. What really matters the most? And those pretty much that's when you can start getting defining what are your core values. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
sometimes because at the beginning I was like, well, core values, and when you think core values, you think about the shit hanging on the wall in a company, right? But no, man, it's really what matters the most. And if you implement that in your business, what matters the most in your business? Like if you're
Yeah.
building a team, for example, it matters that you have people with integrity, people that do things with excellence, people that go above and beyond, that always go the extra mile for their clients. If those things
Yep.
are the ones that matter to you, guess what? There you go. Those are your core values.
You can also another tactic you can use is what were you lacking that you had to work on in order to find success? So, for instance, like me having confidence in the sales process or in the home with the client when I first started, that was something I had to work on. And when I found ways to work on my confidence, and just basically by doing the reps and doing trainings and teaching myself, I found that I became more successful and I started to enjoy the process more. And that was something that was like a key moment. There was like, confidence is a big thing when it comes to sales, like being confident in yourself, being confident in my abilities to be the professional within that setting, the confidence in my knowledge of the product, and my confidence to have a good conversation and actually provide the
Yeah.
best service, right? And so me is like, hey, one of my core values is be confident, right? And you can build confidence through daily discipline. And that was something that was very, very important to me. And it was something that I identified as something that was a weakness prior to. So
Yeah.
as I built that weakness and it made that change, it was like, dude, there's something here, right? And so I added that to one of my core values in order to help teach my agents build confidence, and you build it through these methods, right? And the more confident
Yeah.
you get, the better you will perform. So
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, man. Yeah, you're right.
So you can there's a lot of ways that you can develop your core values, but I mean the first and most important way is just like Pedro's saying is what's most important to you. How do you want to operate?
Yeah.
How do you want to be seen by your actions? If you had a
Yeah.
camera that was following you all day every day, 24 hours a day, and people could watch your life, right? How do you want them to view you? What do you want your reputation to be, right?
Yeah.
What actions do you want to take? There's your core values right there. Right? Are you
There
are
you
you
go.
somebody are you someone that gets up and you have discipline action? Are you someone that goes the extra mile? Are you someone that has confidence in your action? Are you someone that keeps their word? Are you someone that pours into their project or their business or their life or their relationships, their wife, their husband, whatever? Like,
Yeah.
how do you want to be seen? So
Absolutely. And man, Joe Maxwell, one of the his 21 irrefutable laws of leadership is attraction. And that's why it's important to define your core values, because then you're gonna define type of person, like you were saying, that you want to be, right? How do you want to be seen as a leader, as a man or woman, as an entrepreneur, business owner, boss, whatever, right?
mhm,
So when you get clear on those core values and what matters the most to you, guess what? You're gonna attract people that is gonna be similar to you. You're gonna attract
yep.
the right people, right? You're gonna find and attract the people that identify with the same core values, and that way you can be around the people that will help you grow and become better or move your company or your vision forward for you.
Mhm. Absolutely. No, I agree. 100%. That is how when you build and scale, you have to hire off of your core values. And that's a really difficult, it was something that was even challenging for me, for a lot of small business owners that are just starting to grow their business, starting to hire, is especially if you're in sales, because money talks and numbers matter and those stats matter. And a lot of people will see that person that like, dude, this person, John, Bob, whoever over here, they have great numbers. They produce a lot. They make a lot of money, and that's going to have X amount of impact on the organization monetarily, right? But if that person doesn't believe in your core values, if that person ends up pulling, it's like pulling a rope, and you're trying to pull,
Yeah.
you are, as a business owner, you're pulling the rope uphill, and you're trying to get as many people on the rope with you. to pull uphill faster. And if someone's pulling it the other direction, or even 45 degrees off, it's fucking up your flow.
Yeah.
It's fucking up your
Mhm.
business, and it will eventually be toxic to the point to
Yeah.
where they will influence other people to not follow core values because they're a top producer or whatever, and it will
Yeah.
have a negative impact. You have to get rid of those people. You have to 100%, and then you have to only hire by the core values. I actually had a person reach out to me recently that and about standards also, and I'll be quick and I'll let you jump in. This guy was like, hey, I've got XYZ in my past performance in my production. All my production can be told. This is how much I've produced as an agent. This is what I'm looking to do. I have this many salespeople in my Rolodex from my years in sales that I can bring on, and I can duplicate myself. He'd only been in insurance for a couple of years, and he was 100% like, I want to do this. I've been watching your stuff. I think you're great. Blah, blah, blah. But then at the end, after we had a long conversation, we talked for days. We talked for almost a week, back and forth, having calls. I would just answer questions. And then he was like, okay, this is what I want. And he came in with some demands. And one of them was something that I couldn't do. One of them was
Hmm.
something that was like, hey, this is the standard that I've set in my company for all previous agents coming on board. And I've said it was going to be for all future agents.
Yeah.
I can do the first thing, but I can't do the second. And here's why. And he was like, well, he's like, well, then you're going to lose out on me and you're not going to get me.
Hmm.
I'm fine with that. I was like, I was like, and if you're trying to leverage me and to get me to make a decision, I literally told him, I was like, dude, this is the standard. And if you're
Yeah.
trying to get me to change a standard just for you, you're basically making me go back on my word on every single person that I've brought into my company before you. And that makes me a shitty leader. And the fact that you'd
So
even
good.
request that, I'm like, dude, I'm fine with you to come on board because you don't meet the core values. And he was like, all right,
100%.
all right, dope. Dude, he was like, deuces. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, hey man, I was like, I wish you the best of luck, but like it's not, you're not coming on board with those parameters. It's just I can't do it. Like it would be a
Yeah.
smack in the face to everyone that I brought on board. And then I was like, and then also think about it like this: if I go back on my standard, I'm setting a new standard that I will change my standards at will. So
Yeah.
it's so now you broke one standard, that means you can break every standard
You know,
across.
man, and a lot of people is like, I know, but it's just one time. No, one time can fuck everything that you have built, man. That is so good that you brought that up, man, because I had situations. I remember when I first got my license, I got a client. They were cousins, and they were looking for the same home. It was like 1.2, $1.5 million a deal for two houses, man. And I mean, I was brand new. I haven't even didn't have even 6 months in real estate, man. And the opportunity came in. So I was excited, man. I was like, damn, I'm gonna close my first $1 million deal in real estate, right? And man, they were not aligned with their core values. They were just like taking advantage, like trying to see how, like asking for a bunch of, like, they were asking to lower our commissions and things like that. And it's like, I'm not lowering my commission for nobody. And I found them a property. I found them the right property for them, exactly what they were looking for. And they decided to turn down the deal because the ceilings on the living room were 12 feet instead of 10. It's like, I will understand it will be from 10 to 8, from 12 to 8, but it's like, man, this is everything you were looking. Like, we've been looking for months, and we finally found the perfect home that you guys had. Everything. It's like it was almost like out of the vision that they have, the properties that we found. They turned it down because of that. After that, man, they started like, yeah, you're not working for us and all that stuff. And it was like, you know what, you guys are not aligned with what I do, because I have gone above and beyond for you. So you know what, I'm canceling my contract with you guys. Go find another agent. You know. And
Yeah.
the thing is that a lot of people, man, in business, they're afraid. Some of the people. Here's the thing: is you, I believe the people that they have the core values, they set like a standard, right? And they decide to fail that standard for one person, for one deal, for money, man, you don't have a standard. You know, you don't have a freaking standard. You don't have the moral to say no, and you're not who you say you are.
Mhm.
Because when you have you have set of those values, you have set of the standard and what you're willing to tolerate or not in your life, it's gonna be easy for you to say no. And you know what's funny, man? After I turn out that deal, Yeah, maybe I didn't get another $1 million deal, but I got like 4 new clients and all of them closed. Like right after I decided to say, you know what? I'm not working with you guys. So a lot of people are afraid to lose one deal, man. But you losing that deal for your core values is not worth it, man. It's worth to keep your integrity because when you decide to turn something down because it's not aligned with who you are, man, God is gonna reward you, man. It's gonna bring you more deals. You know,
That's
you're
so
gonna find a
true.
better opportunity. And you know
That's so
what
true.
happens, man? Every single time we turn something because it's not aligned with us, something better shows up all the time. I can guarantee you that.
Because you're also telling the universe what you don't want and what you're looking for. And
Exactly.
dude, I believe in the metaphysical. I believe in manifestation, law of attraction. And when you accept those things that you should not be accepting, you're telling the universe, this is what I want, and you'll get more of that. You'll have more challenges,
Yeah.
you'll have more struggle. When you're like, nope, I'm not doing this. This is what I'm trying to attract. The universe is is infinitely abundant. It will provide you what you need in order to find the success that you're looking to have. It may not be the direct path that you're thinking, but it will give you a path as long as you
Yeah.
follow it and as long as you stay to your core values and your standards. 100% believe that.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
without a doubt. So
Absolutely, man. So that's why, and it's those little things, man. You know, the thing a lot of people really get caught up with all the big stuff when it all lies down in all those little things, man. Like sticking to your core values, saying who you say you are. You know, having that standard, like not willing to tolerate certain things. You know, and
yeah.
most people are not gonna. A lot of people is gonna judge you. They're not gonna like it. You know, I recently got a lot of hate for a post that I made on social media. Like a
Hey man,
lot of
half people are gonna hate you, half the people are gonna love you.
bro, it got such a big ripple effect that even some of these high level influencers on social media made a fucking podcast episode about it, like trashing me. Like imagine that. So,
Wow.
which is okay, you know.
That's
It is
awesome
it
though.
is okay. I mean,
Yeah.
like one friend told me at the end of the day, that shows that you win. You know, like the fact that you got so much engagement, man. That a lot of like, I don't care. I can take the hit. You know,
Yeah.
I can take like people. I do have thick skin with all this stuff, man, and I don't care speaking what it's in my mind. You know,
Mhm.
and any shows. You know, the post shows like even there was a lot of people that didn't agree with what I said, like 98% of the people agree with. So it shows that it was is an important topic, you know, and 98% of the people are on board with it. So,
Yeah.
but but you know, that's when your core values are tested, you know. Are you willing to bend or are you willing to stay with your head up, you know, and stand firm in what it is that you believe? Well, guess what? I'm
I
standing
love that.
firm because
Stand
I'm not
firm.
changing. What was that?
So I love that, the stand firm. I love that. I didn't know that that was
Yeah,
the basis of the word.
exactly. You know, so that's what I believe, and that's how I see things. I'm standing firm on my opinion, you know, because it has worked for me so far. So
And that's powerful. I appreciate you coming on board and dude, this was a great conversation and I'm fucking loving your energy right now, bro.
thanks a lot, man.
It's great. It's
Appreciate that,
great.
bro.
I feel like we could sit here and talk about business and mindset and sales and core values probably for a long time.
Oh
Um,
man, that's my jam, bro. Like even at
yeah,
home, we had to make an agreement with my wife at certain time, like shut the fuck up, no more business. Because that's and I was like, but babe, like that's her life. What else are we gonna talk about? Like we don't have kids, we just have a dog. Like what else can we talk about?
yeah, yeah. I've been in relationships where it's been the same way. It's just like, dude, all you do is talk about business. It's like, well,
Yeah.
that's what I do all
But
day.
the good thing is that she's in business, so she gets caught up in the conversation too, because I mean we both building this, you know. So
Yeah,
it is great, man. I think it is a blessing. I always tell the guys, man, like if you're married and your wife is not involved in everything you're doing, man, get her involved, man. You know,
mm,
they need to know what it is that you're doing. Even if they don't, some of them are gonna join you in their business, some of them they're not, you know. But I think a lot of like we were talking about society standards and all that stuff, right? I think society has put this idea that because man, but people always like, oh, I need a break. I cannot be around them all the time. Like, so when the fuck you got married? No, you got married with someone because you decided to do life with them.
yeah,
So for me, man, I'm not saying that we don't have our time alone, that I don't do my shit. Like in April, I'm out for like a week and a half. I have all these man camps and events and stuff like that. Like we all do separate stuff, but we're doing business together. We're doing our life together. We're doing all like in church. She does her stuff with women. I do my stuff with men. We are involved in different almost like doing similar things in our areas. Me as a man, she as a woman, or even as a couple. But it's been the greatest thing ever, man. Like I think it is the greatest partnership I have, not only for my relationship, like in marriage, but like in business.
Mhm.
Like who else can have your back better than your own spouse?
Yeah.
So and it's not easy. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of patience because you're trying to get two people to agree in one thing, not only in their personal life but in business. But I'm telling you, man, I think it's been the greatest things I ever made, the greatest decision I ever made. Being aligned with someone who has the same mindset, have the same goals, wants to be successful, don't wants to work for nobody, wants to build something for her life and her family too. So it is powerful, man, and that's what getting clear is important, right? Even you guys are, if you listening to this, you're single, you have to get clear on what you're willing to tolerate for your relationship, right? Are you if you know that you want to be successful, how that person looks like in your life, how your partners that you want to do business look like, you have to define that. Because imagine that you want to be successful and say, okay, I want to get married with a successful woman too, or someone who has the same mindset, but you marry someone that is lazy as fuck, cannot even clean their own shit, you gotta fail.
Mhm.
Your marriage is
That's
gonna fail.
that's a good point. That's a good point. Identifying what you want in your relationship, but also you got to be that same person too, because you're going to attract like attracts like. Right?
Exactly.
So they're gonna wanna expect the same things for you. So if you're like, "Dude, I want a woman that's, like, really hardworking, and she's always, like, keeping the house clean, this, that, and the other," and you have a house that's, trashed, and you don't work that hard, and you always make excuses, bro, you ain't gonna check that. It's just
That is
not
the
happening.
other that is the other part of the equation, man. People want shit, but they don't want to become the person that they deserve that. And I have this conversation several times with my wife too, because uh I was I talk with with a lot of people too. It's like, man, I see people want to have a nice car, a nice house. But here's the thing. If you are living right now in a one bedroom apartment and you keep that place like it's a shithole, don't expect that life is gonna reward you with a better place to live. You
Mhm,
have to learn, and that's one of my favorite topics is stewardship, man. And you have to learn to steward what you have in your life, because if you take care of what God or life has given you, the car that you have, even if you drive in an old car, you living in a small apartment, not in the best side of town. If you learn to value those things, man, when you start getting, first of all, life is going to reward you with more. It's going to offer opportunities so you can get more, and you're going to learn how to appreciate the things, better things in your life. So it's like if you're driving a freaking Camry, but you treat that as you don't treat it well, you don't clean it, you don't keep it nice. What makes you think life is going to reward you with a Lambo? It's not going to
right.
happen, bro. It's
It's
not
not.
going to happen.
Yeah, no,
So
you're
it's like
absolutely
with relationships, you want a nice woman, a nice man, become the person that deserves that, right? That's why people that wins the lottery, they fail, right? Because they haven't matured into the person with the mindset and the ability and the skill set to know how to steward $1 million, right? And then they win all this freaking money overnight, right? They don't know what to do with it. You spend it all, and then they end up even worse than they were before they got the $1 million. That's why it's so important that you have to develop yourself to be that person who deserves $1 million, who deserves the hot wife or the hot husband, the family, the kids, whatever. You have to become that person, and it's a long journey. There's no finish line. That's my favorite part. There's no finish line, bro. Your finish line is there. You are 6 feet under the ground. That's when everything's over. Before that, you had to keep going and keep growing, man.
That's absolutely true. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Pedro, for jumping on and sharing some wisdom and a lot of your experiences in order to help the audience. Um, I would assume one way to find you in your content is go check out the podcast, was it the Way of the Modern Beast?
The Chronicles of a Modern Beast.
Chronicles of a Modern Beast. Chronicles of a Modern Beast. And then how else can they follow you if they wanted to see more of your content or just connect with you?
Man, I'm very active on Facebook and Instagram.
Mhm.
But the easiest way to find the links to all my social media, the podcast, everything that we're doing with my wife, just go to Pedro Meneses.online and you find all the links there. And there's a link to my calendar if you want to get on a call too. That's where you have everything from me. So
Awesome.
just simple link.
We'll put that in the show notes as well. And the final question I ask all my guest speakers: you have the opportunity to spend time with, learn from, have a conversation with, and break bread with 3 individuals. Anyone in history, anyone live or deceased. Who would those 3 people be and why?
Well, that will be Jesus, obviously, because
Yeah.
I'm a believer, and there's so many questions that I cannot get answered right now. Dale Carnegie,
Oh,
because
that's a good one. That's unique.
I mean, he was the expert in how to influence people, man. And how to treat others. So I just reread his book again and had a different perspective. Like, man, I have questions. you know. And the third one, man, which actually um is gonna happen. Is with my pastor, Pastor Keith. I don't know if you're familiar with Pastor Keith. He's Ryan's student pastor too.
Mm.
But he's also a coach and a mentor. And I think there's somebody alive that I do want to imitate his life is that man, because he lives what he like, whatever he said, he speaks on stage or whatever. That's how he lives his life. So we finally have our first in-person coaching with him next month. So that's an accomplishment, man. So I'm really getting closer to that person that I want to have in my life and follow the example that he has set for his every area of his life. So those will
Yeah,
be the 3 people, man.
that's awesome. I love that. For the audience, if you learned anything, if you grew, if this provided you value, which I know it did if you listen to now, then do me a favor, share this content with somebody else that can learn, grow from it, get a different perspective, and just get some value. And just by you sharing that, you might have an influence or an impact in someone else's life that they can also apply these things and they can stand firm in their standards. So it takes you 60 seconds to like, rate, review, subscribe, and share this content, but it means the world to us. So
That's right.
this has been the Be the Difference podcast. Make sure you go check out the Chronicles of a Modern Beast podcast as well. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, we'll see you.